As I mentioned on the sustainable PDF, you can actually easily find a link to this, and this is also in your handouts, a link to this carbon footprint. So, really we're talking about 4 tabs that you need to look at and fill in as best as possible. The first thing, the most important thing, is the state that you're in. I'm going to be a little self-serving and put New Jersey, as you can tell by my accent. I'm in the Northeast. And the reason this is so important is because electricity is actually geospecific. If you're in New Jersey or New York, your electricity is, burning about 500 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour. But if you're in Colorado, it's as much as 1,200 pounds per megawatt hour. So you want to put your state in so that it calculates accurately as we go through. All this information is really important because it gives you a sense of year-on-year comparison. So when you have a baseline, here we have 15,000 square feet. Next year, when you fill it out, you might find that you have 20,000 square feet. A great KPI to track is, your carbon emissions per square foot on a year-on-year basis. The year that you're evaluating, that's where your data is coming from. I actually think I said mine was 2021, so let's change that. Nancy, that's myself. Just, this little area here, these sustainable initiatives, we're going to actually hold off on those and come back later to show you some differences of how it actually impacts your overall footprint. So here we go, scope 1. And as I spoke to you, scope 1 is an owned emission. It's a very important thing to track because you have control over it. You can find within the NATA sustainability standard, there are some tier actions that will reduce this and help you reduce this. So what do we do? So as I said, natural gas, we filled it in on the spreadsheet and figured out that we were at 13,100 CCF. So this is, and we plug it in, and right here, it automatically, here, I'll take it out just to show you. Put it back in, 13,100, and here we go. Your emissions from natural gas is 71.67 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. No propane, we have no propane consumption. Heating oil, we do have some locations that still use heating oil. You would need gallons for that. And if we believe that you were also using heating oil, we say yes. We fill in how many gallons you use over the season. And here we see 113 metric tons for heating oil. I'm going to go back and take that out actually. As we keep moving down, diesel fuel. So I know a lot of ground support uses diesel fuel these days. So we need to go through, figure out how much diesel fuel you used in a full year. We plug in that, use the yes, we say that yes, we use diesel fuel. It's a US gallon, 2,000 gallons. Also go down, we use some gasoline for maybe our Suburban, and maybe we have another, Ford vehicle that's out on site. How many gallons a year we're using there. And as you can see, each and every, it calculates itself. So this is available to you from NATA, and this can make the job of creating that baseline carbon footprint very simple. This is our scope 1 so far. Now we go into our scope 2s. So scope 2, the 2 things that are really around scope 2 is electricity use and steam consumption. Yes, we use electricity, and for the year, it was 279,763 kilowatt hours. Adding up all your months together, you come up with a total. This is using the emission factor, and what an emission factor is the factor that is associated with that energy-intensive activity. Natural gas is about 11 pounds per therm. Electricity can range anywhere from, 500 to 1,000 pounds per megawatt hour. So we have ranges of emission factors that are associated with that fuel. Diesel fuel is at about 10 kilograms per gallon of fuel. Gasoline is about 9 kilograms per gallon of fuel. Jet fuel is at about 9.7 kilograms of CO2 for every gallon of jet fuel. So those are the factors that are multiplied by these units. And here you see for that many kilowatt hours, we're at a footprint of 69.33 metric tons of CO2. So far we've done our scope 1 and our scope 2. Now we start to look at scope 3, and as I said, this is actually not required right now for NATA's footprinting, baseline footprinting, but it is something that you need to start considering and thinking about, because you do have an impact on the environment, on the world around you as you're taking these things into action. There's also a few items listed in here that they may not have a very large impact on the greenhouse gases, but the optics can really do a lot for an FBO for a facility, creating less waste. The paper consumption, that's something that you can actually take action with in your office to ensure that any paper that you're using is recyclable. Try not to use paper, obviously, and also how you recycle it after its use. And so here, let's just assume that you have 3 people who travel throughout the year, and you figure out on an estimate that you fly 100,000 miles. Here we go, and this is commercial business travel. This is not business travel on a charter aircraft. This is not business travel any other way. This is flying commercially. And you'll see this is using an average of short, medium, and long-haul flights combined. And it comes out to 13 metric tons to fly 100,000 miles. So what does that come out to? 15 trips around, New York to California. 10, 15 trips New York to California. Some other things that are really interesting to start tracking, especially as an FBO, is your jet fuel, the jet fuel sales. Now, you are not responsible for the emissions of that, but you are facilitating things like SAF usage by having SAF available or having other systems available for sustainable aviation fuel. And if we want to start to track that, we can. And before I go and do that, because I don't want to shock everybody when they see the numbers, here we have our footprint summary. So this is your carbon footprint. This is Nancy's FBO in New Jersey. This is her carbon footprint based on the information that we gathered on that aggregate utility spreadsheet, punching it into this simple calculator. And here we have, natural gas, about 70 metric tons. We have diesel fuel, gasoline. You can go all the way down, and all of a sudden our total 210 metric tons. That is your baseline carbon footprint. You've taken care of the very first step for NATA. You can now move forward because that is one of the required steps within this self-accreditation. Now you can move forward and say, I've done my baseline, and we can become self-accredited as long as you meet the other requirements. We also include a graphical summary. And when you look at something like this, it really just gives you a really good sense of where most of your greenhouse gases are coming from and where you can make the most impact by changing. So in here, we see that the scope 1 is actually the highest because, natural gas and heating can be very energy intensive. So maybe I think to myself, well, if I, change my temperature by 1 degree up, 1 degree down, you start to see changes. Improve my HVAC system. There's a lot of different actions to be taken in the wintertime for heating or in the summertime for cooling that can change your footprint. So here, this is just more informational so that you start to really, see where your emissions are